Welcome to episode 54 of Kowalski Analysis. I'm your host, Rob Kowalski. How's everybody doing out there? I am excited to be back with y'all. I took a break last week, but tonight I have a really great guest, and let me just tell you about him. His name is Dr. Emerson Eggerichs, and he is an internationally known public speaker on the topic of marriage, parenting, communication, as well as counseling, scientific, and biblical research. Dr. Eggerichs developed the Love and Respect Marriage Conference, which he presents to live audiences around the country, and he has authored several books, including the New York Times bestseller, Love and Respect, which has sold over 2 million copies. He is the founder and president of Love and Respect Ministries. So, guys, we're working hard to get you great guests. I hope you all appreciate it. Before we jump in and bring him in, let me go ahead and mention my sponsor, as always, and that is Mr. Micah Hughes. Micah's a good friend. He's also a real estate wizard. He loves what he does. It's his ministry and his passion, and he will take good care of you if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or get into real estate investing. Give him a call, 443-532-8450, and I'll put his email in the show notes. So without further ado, let's bring in Dr. E. Welcome to Kowalski Analysis, Dr. Emerson Eggerichs, or Dr. E, as you just gave me permission to call you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Rob, and thank you for the invitation.
No, it's great having you. It's an honor. Where are you coming in from?
Outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan. So beautiful state of Michigan during this year, time of season, I should say.
Is that where you grew up? I'm in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah.
Born and raised here. I have a love-hate relationship with Baltimore. I love it because I got deep roots here. Sometimes I just don't understand the leadership. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Yes.
Were you raised in Michigan?
No, actually, Illinois, Peoria, Illinois. And
okay.
My wife is from Indiana, and then we met at Wheaton College in Chicago. I went into the ministry, so we were in Iowa, we were in California, and then we came to East Lansing, Michigan, college town, and I pastored there for nearly 20 years. And then we launched our Love and Respect Marriage Conference in 1999, and Sarah and I have been doing that ever since. So we located over here near the West Michigan, they call it, and that's where we've been living since 2003.
I spent the summer in Elkhart, Indiana.
Yes.
My grandmother had a trailer, and I guess that's like the trailer capital of the United States.
That's true. That's exactly right. Yeah. No, that is well known for their construction of trailers and outstanding equipment.
Yeah, I've loved trailer campgrounds or trailer parks, not trailer parks, campgrounds ever since then, just because everybody's there, they're on vacation, everybody's in a good mood. But I remember they had all these little, I don't know what they were, if they were like little prairie dogs. They were like these little like chipmunks or something.
Yes, chipmunks probably.
I was always trying to catch them. Like I had this box with a stick and I could never get one, but it was fun trying.
Yes.
So how long have you been married?
47 years, and coming up in September, be 48. We do our Love and Respect Marriage Conferences. It's a 2-day event, and the door prize we give out for people who've been married the longest, we're eventually going to win our own prize.
Right. So what led you to starting those conferences?
I have my PhD in family studies, so there were things I saw in the research literature, but because I was a pastor, I saw something in the Bible, Ephesians 5:33, which some say is the summary statement to the greatest treatise in the New Testament on marriage, where God commands the husband to love and the wife to respect. And no one debated that first part, but the idea of respecting a man, that was questionable to say the least. Women don't feel it. He doesn't deserve it. He hasn't earned it. They're not going to be treated like a doormat, not going to feed his narcissism, certainly going to not subject themselves to emotional abuse. But other than those things, Dr. Emerson, we're really open to hearing what you have to say about this. And so there was this pushback. But I went to military school from 8th grade to 12th grade because we have family problems that maybe we can address in a moment. I was going to go to West Point, at least that was my goal. And then I found Christ. Someone gave tickets to go see a Billy Graham film called For Pete's Sake. And at age 16, I heard that God was there, that he loved me, that Christ died for me, that all I had to do is ask him to forgive me and come into me. And in childlike faith, I received him into my heart and things changed. I found out Billy Graham went to Wheaton. So I applied there. But this idea of honor and respect was huge as a guy that was interested in the military. In fact, I've spoken to many NFL and basketball teams. Pat Riley had me come speak to the Miami Heat, Tom Coughlin to the New York Giants. I have had this opportunity, the SEALs, I spoke to the troops in Iraq on this concept of love and respect, the issues of honor, and how men are motivated to serve and die for issues of honor. But the women don't understand that. It's not that they're mean-spirited. It's not that they're indifferent. They're not wired the same way. And
Right.
so we will deflate over things that they think is childish, but they deflate over things that we think are childish. And so what we discovered based on the love and respect thing is, though we all need love and respect, we've asked 7,000 people this question: when you're in a conflict with your spouse, do you feel unloved at that moment or disrespected? Rob, 83% of the men say they feel disrespected. And one of the reasons for that is women love to love. Women are nurturers by nature, and they care. They can't not care. So most men know that their wives love them. They don't think they like them. And so men shut down because they feel disrespected, whereas that's not her intent, but that's how she appears. And 72% of the women say during conflict they feel unloved. So we point out that there's a felt need, though we all need love and respect equally. Women need respect, men need love. Somehow in the conflict, there's a pink and blue difference. And then it gave birth to what I call the crazy cycle. Without love, she reacts without respect. He reacts without love. She reacts without respect. And it starts to spin among couples of goodwill. And that's been one of our main messages, helping people get off that crazy cycle. Does that make sense?
No, it totally does. I had John Gray on the podcast before, Mars Women from Venus author, and he talked about that. And he just basically was like talking about how women should just praise their husband for simple things. They bring in the groceries. Oh my God, treat him like he's a hero just for taking out the trash. You're my strong husband. Like that's what men want. We want validation. We want to be like praised by the wife. Like we'll literally go out and die for a woman if they feed that part of our ego. I don't know if it's ego actually, maybe it's a healthy part of our ego, but I definitely see truth.
I think, yeah, sometimes it can be superficial. Men can read superficiality, but there's a genuineness there. And we talk about that in my book, Love and Respect. What does that idea of respect look like? And what is genuine? I think most often women need more reassurance that they're loved. Shelty, a good friend of mine, Dr. Feldhahn, has described the fact that women are 3 conversations away from fearing the husband's going to walk out on them. So there's a fluidity of inadequacy and insecurity in many women, and they want reassurance that they're loved. Whereas men don't necessarily need ongoing reassurance that they're respected, but they want to believe that deep in that woman's heart that she believes in him and that she honors his spirit. Dr. Carl Rogers said years ago that it's called unconditional positive regard toward the spirit of a person. And what happens in marriage when women are upset, it's the gestures of contempt that the University of Washington discovered. Her eyes darken, her face turns sour, her scolding finger comes out, she rolls her eyes, she sighs, and there's this estrogen kicks in. The word choice of contempt is incredible. Women know how to speak disrespect, disgust very quickly. And she's not intending to send the message that I despise who you are as a human being, but that's how he interprets it. So one of the things that we talk about is respectfully communicating things to him that don't appear to be respectable, that he may do things that are not honorable, but you can confront him in an honorable way. And great leaders, whether it's Pat Riley, Tom Coughlin, they all get it. Great leaders understand how to kick butt all day long without showing disgust and disdain toward the spirit of a man. When I spoke to the Miami Heat, Pat Riley and I talked about the fact that when a man feels dishonored and unjustly treated, you're going to have mutiny. He's either going to jump ship or he's going to throw you over ship. And it's important to treat men fairly. They don't have any problem with discipline if they don't like it, but if it's fair and you honor them, hey, I believe in you and this is why we're doing it. And everybody has to suffer the same consequences. We're not giving favoritism anyway. And you're the best ball player I've ever had. And I have no idea where your head was at when you showed up late. Guys get it. As long as you honor them. Notice the deposits on you're the greatest player I ever had, that there is this ongoing honorable expression. And women, though, don't do that necessarily because she's hurting and she wants to get his attention that I feel unloved right now. And I'm trying to get your attention, but she delivers it in a way that's very disrespectful. Just as when men are very dishonored or disrespected, they will go quiet. 85% of those who stonewall and withdraw is the male, partly because he needs to calm down. During conflict, his heartbeats get to 99 beats per minute. That's been documented. Women look like they're out of control. Their heartbeats are normal. He looks stoic. His heartbeats are going through the roof. So he has to calm down physiologically. He's not going to have a rational discussion. So if you and I were best friends and got into a really heated moment, we'll say, drop it, forget it, we'll separate because we could kill each other.
Right.
So the relationship is more important than the issue. We'll always drop it, given that we're committed to each other and we're willing to die for each other. We know that we could hurt each other. So it's honorable. So in the research, though, when men withdraw, the women say it feels like an act of hostility. But in my research, it's an act of honor. So it raises the question, who's right? Is it an act of hostility at that moment when he withdraws and stonewalls, or an act of honor? It depends on whether you're pink or blue. And on the other side of that equation, the researchers point out women criticize and complain, criticize and complain. And all the research, as I pointed out, is women care. Women can't not care. And they are doing this because they care. Yet when you talk to a man the way these women are talking, we see it as contempt. And so it raises the question, is that criticism and complaining an act of care or an act of contempt? And it depends on whether you videotape in pink or blue. And so our campaign is to help couples, first of all, realize we have a huge, honest misunderstanding. We have a huge, there's not ill will. We didn't marry Hitler's distant cousin. There is a huge, honest misunderstanding of people goodwill. He's trying to often to do the respectful, honorable thing, not the unloving thing. And she's trying to do the loving thing, not the disrespectful thing. But couples don't know how to decode on this. And this applies not only in marriage, it applies in all relationships. And if we don't decode that, you're going to see the spirit of that person deflate, and you're going to think, what did I say? What? And until we understand this, we're going to have ruptured relationships. That makes sense?
No, totally. So when you were saying how the husband, I just wanted to do the reverse of the scenario that you just presented. Where what did you told me basically of how the husband reacts to the wife? How should you said there's a way that we can confront someone and basically criticize them, but still show them respect. How would the man do that for the wife in a loving way?
Yeah, same thing. The wife taking that point to the wife, just saying, I'm not trying to dishonor you. How do I say this in a way that you don't feel I'm trying to diss you? Help me right now. Coach me on this. I'm very upset. I'm not trying to diss you. I know you'd die for me if I don't kill you. How do I do this? You ask that question. By that mere fact, every man I know will soften because she's entered the honor code. She's not trying to be dishonoring. She's telling us that, and we trust her.
Right.
So too, a guy says, I don't know how to do this loving thing. I was raised as a single mother. I don't know how to be loving. I'm upset right now. How do I say this without you thinking I'm trying to say to you, I don't love you. I die for you. How do I do this? I'm so upset. So you use what I call the mother tongue of women primarily is love. If you use that vocabulary and you do it sincerely, not as a technique to manipulate the person, they'll soften. And so too, when you use that language with a man genuinely and authentically, he'll hear you, given that there's a degree of goodwill. Now, if he's committing an adultery, an affair out there, there's nothing she can do. He will attack her on every point and vice versa.
Yeah.
But if there's goodwill and the people are caring individuals, but they are confused, then the first thing you can do is use their mother tongue, say, I don't know how to do this. I'm certainly not trying to do that. Help me here. And that's the beginning way of introducing this language.
That's awesome. I had a conversation with someone I work closely with who I have a very high opinion of, but we were disagreeing on some stuff and I was confronting her about it. And she was like, I don't need to be talked to this way. And I was like, my tone wasn't great, I'll be honest. But I was like, what are you talking about? I think the world of you. I was pissed, but I said, I think the world of you. And it did. It just diffused it because I had a problem with the behavior, not you as a person. I think you're like an exceptional human being. I don't like this thing though. And it really helped a lot.
If we help the other person know that we're distinguishing their spirit from their actions. And a lot of times the action causes us to attack their spirit. You know, what you've done here illustrates you're a horrible, rotten, no good person. But other than that, I want to have a long-term relationship with you. You know, we overstate things, but we expect the other person to somehow decipher that we really are not meaning what we're saying. And we're too vulnerable. When we come across in that, and this is where we get into problems. As a guy, if you were talking that way, there would be no way that I would have personalized that as an attack, probably, particularly. Yeah. But even we will disarm it. Hey, I'm not trying to attack you here. I'm just trying to, that's the dumbest idea I've ever had, but help me understand. You got more wisdom than I'll ever have. How do you come up? Maybe I'm missing something here. Because right now you sound like an idiot, but obviously I'm the idiot here. So tell me, what am I missing? See, that's just filled with honor. It's just filled with honor. Yeah. But a lot of times women don't do that. And the same thing, men don't come across. I know I'm probably wrong here, and I know I should probably say I'm sorry and seek your forgiveness, but I don't right now because I got issues in my life. But that's so disarming. Women they'll grin, you know.
Hey, Rob Kowalski here. When I first got serious about living intentionally and becoming a better version of myself, I found a major shortage of things to do and people to do them with. And it was the loneliness and boredom that led me to starting CityFam. So I just want to take a moment right now and encourage you to go over and join the CityFam Facebook community. It's a free Facebook group, and in it you'll find purpose-driven people from all over the world that want to enjoy life to the fullest. You can search it on Facebook, or you can go to www.friendswithbetterbenefits.com and it'll take you right there. While I'm mentioning it, if you're single, searching for real love before sex, as I like to say, I want to encourage you to join the Waiting Works community. That's another free Facebook group I put together designed to help people wait well, date well, and ultimately hit the mark in life and love. And you can go to www.reallovewaits.com and I'll see you over there. Now back to the episode. So what is the difference between love and respect?
That's a good question. And in the book, Love and Respect, we define that. For instance, I use an acronym for women, and these, again, cross over, but there's so much core truth to this. If we don't appreciate this, we will conclude that I'm the normal one, and therefore, if my spouse doesn't feel the way I am, they are abnormal. And this is part of the challenge we have, because if I know I'm right about how I feel, then you've got to be wrong if you feel differently. And that's a major mistake. One of the things we say is, though we're equal, we're not the same. We're equal, but we're not the same. And it's important that we understand these distinctions to the question you're asking. So for instance, in the book, Love and Respect, I spell love to a woman with an acronym called COUPLE, spelled couple. Mm-hmm. And I go through every verse in the Bible, as well as the best research in my understanding on how a woman interprets love. And it's closeness, openness, understanding, peacemaking, loyalty, and esteem. And esteem is respect. So part and parcel of love is respecting her. We're not saying she doesn't need that, but and women say, oh, that's me. I want to be close. I want him to be more open. I want him to be understanding to me. I want to be at peace. Why doesn't he just say sorry and we can move forward? I want him to be loyal and committed to me, and I want him to honor me as his equal. Those are the values that women have. This has been borne out. And not only does the scripture clearly teach that, research reinforces that. And all of our experience for 20 years, women have said, oh man, you nailed it. And that respect is more abstract. And I put it together in an acronym called CHAIRS, CHAIRS. And if a wife wants to know why her husband deflates, why he shuts down on her, usually it's related to what we call his conquest. When are you going to get a job that makes money? You know, she could be insecure and fearing, but I'll tell you, she put a knife through him. And she doesn't understand that because it's not always that. She's just mouthing off. We talk about hierarchy, which is a word that the culture can choke on. But what it means is the man's responsible to die for her. Given all things equal, and you have 3 kids and the 2 of you are there and a man comes in to murder you, every man will die for his wife. He feels like he's that umbrella protection over her. Then the authority issue is if you give him primary responsibility, you have to give him commensurate authority. And I call it 51% responsibility. He doesn't have 99% responsibility, but 51. And if you give someone primary responsibility, you have to give them commensurate authority. Leadership 101 says, if you tell somebody they're primarily responsible, but you have the authority or veto power, you can't do that, we're equal, then you're going to frustrate them. And so each couple has to decide. And if he's 51% responsibility, you go on record to say you have 51% authority. And so when I'm arguing with you, it's not because I'm trying to wear the pants. I know you're responsible to die for me, and I'm not trying to argue against that. And most men will soften. The reason that there are many conflicts is he thinks she's wearing the pants. And if you say we're just completely equal, then you'll have to figure out how you're going to resolve that. What I believe is if you go on record this way, men will soften. They'll actually engage more. They'll be much more deferential. It just works. So CHA and then I is insight. Men do have wisdom. They are solution oriented. The problem is that a lot of times he's trying to solve a problem that she doesn't want solved. She just wants a listening ear. And that was a mistake I made with Sarah when I learned, do you just need a listening ear or a solution? She said, I just need a listening ear. And a listening ear was the solution to the problem. And that took me a long time to figure out. Then relationship is the R, where we talk about shoulder to shoulder. Men want the wife just present with her, with him shoulder to shoulder. Whereas we talk about women want face-to-face conversations. Men need shoulder-to-shoulder relationships. And we explain that's one of the revolutionary ideas women say they never even thought about. because they think if you're going to have a quality relationship, you got to talk face to face. Otherwise, this is a useless endeavor. But men are energized by the presence of a woman doing an activity together, and we unpack that. And then lastly, sexuality. And though women need sexual intimacy, you trigger her sexual desire by loving her through COUPLE. COUPLE enables her to open herself up completely sexually. But a lot of times the way you honor a man is by meeting his needs sexually before you connect him emotionally. And that's not how a woman's hardwired. But a man often will soften when you meet that need, and then he won't shut up. He'll just sit there, lay there in bed talking. Does that make sense?
No, it's great. I had heard a study a while back where if a man is on a bench press machine in the gym and a woman straddles him and sits down on him, he can bench like 30% more. Something about, no, I'm serious. It was a real study, like something about your testosterone.
Yeah,
so like,
yeah, exactly.
Just a woman being in our presence, man. Women make the world go round, I often say. I don't know where men would be without it. We wouldn't even shower. We wouldn't work. I don't know. It'd be a sad world without women.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that I'm trying to help is in the book, we talk about men are not superficial. And some of the illustrations we can use sometimes, it just seems so childish that a man can bench press more. And it's true, but there's a deeper issue here. And we talk about what we're addressing here is very deep. And when you get into it, I wrote a book called Mother and Son, the same thing, called The Respect Effect, because these wives who were coming to our conference, the 2-day conference, and for these years said, I think this will apply to my son. And so they started writing me. I got hundreds of emails on how you speak what I call respect talk or honor language to the boy and what happens to him. And this isn't superficial stuff. This isn't just saying, I'm so proud of you for lifting these weights. It's deeper than that. And because males who motivate other men, we're not doing it in superficial ways. We're motivating men to do the honorable thing, the honest thing, to give our lives for our buddies. These are very deep things. And once we tap into that, men are softened in their spirit and they serve. And men are very mature at so many levels. But if we continue to refer to them as jerks, unloving, as idiots, as brainless, they're going to pull away. And they're just not going to address things. And then people are going to say they're uncaring human beings. No, you cannot show. No husband will feel fond feelings of love and affection in his heart toward a wife he thinks has contempt toward who he is as a human being. Men are not, there are stupid men out there, just as there are Jezebel women. But I believe that these men that we're talking about are there, and they were there in courtship, and she recognized it. So where did he go? Was it bait and switch, or is he still there? No, he's still there, but he fears coming out. He doesn't fear her physical brutality. He fears her contempt, and he'll avoid that like the plague, just as a woman will back away from a harsh, angry male. She's just too sensitive. It's overkill. She can't function around that. And so God has hardwired us differently. But once we understand his architecture and we align ourselves with it, the relationship becomes very meaningful and the friendship will last.
How many couples have you had go through?
For years, we had 1,800 couples at the 2-day conference. That was the average. And then the video conference, people say hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. The book has sold 2.1 million hardback, still selling. And then I just found out the other day that it's being translated in Arabic. It's been on Arabic television now twice. Being translated Turkish, 26 languages. So it just continues. It's called Evergreen in the publishing industry. Evergreen. They say it's just not going to stop.
Wow.
And I'm grateful for that. But it resonates. It's very simple. As I say, all you have to do is remember 2 words, actually just one. As a guy, is that which I'm about to say or do going to feel loving to her or unloving? And if you don't know the answer to that, ask her. And as a wife, is that which I'm about to say or do going to sound or feel disrespectful to him? If you don't know, ask him. If you ask those 2 questions, one of yourself or one of them, and are honest and humble, you're going to be okay. Given that she wants to be loved, and given that he's assured of your love, but doesn't think you like him.
Right.
And the reason he's shutting down isn't the fact that you don't love him. He's shutting down because he thinks you don't respect who he is. And particularly in this culture, you've been given license as a woman to say, I love you with all my heart, but I don't think I could ever respect you again. And as I say, that's comparable to him saying, look, I respect you more than anybody, especially since you got your old man's inheritance of 10 million. But I never have loved you. I don't love you now and have no intentions of ever loving you. In fact, no one could love you, but I respect you. I say to women, what would you feel if you heard him say that? I'd be devastated and never get over it. What do you think he feels when you say, I love you, but I don't think I could ever respect you again? Whoa. No, you couldn't respect that behavior that he did. But the reason that you're disappointed is because I believe in you. And there's always redemption. And I think I believe in you more than you believe in yourself. I want to honor you more than you honor yourself. You talk to your man that way. It's like those who saw the movie The Cinderella Man. She believed in him. And he went out there and fought for the family.
Yeah. As you're talking, I just got some couples in mind that are friends that I really feel like need to go through this program. And in one instance that I'm thinking of in particular, the guy, he's a little bit weaker in the relationship. It was somewhat, basically he had a crush on the girl for a while, and then he finally was able to get her. But now she whips him around in the relationship and he takes it. And to me, I see the fear, like he's afraid of losing her, so he won't stand up to her. And I look at the curse in Genesis where it says, the woman, you will try to rule over your husband, but he will, I forget the verse, but you know what I'm saying? And it's like, how much of this dynamic, this unhealthy dynamic, is the result of that curse? Because I feel like I've had a similar situation in my own life where I had to check the female for some bad behavior, and then they respected me for it. I could have lost the relationship, but it actually benefited me in the long run, and it made our physical relationship better. At the time, I was living in sin, but that's beside the point. So how much of that unhealthy dynamic do you think is the result of the fall, I guess?
Oh, yeah. And I think all of these tensions that you're referring to, we could put under the label of sin and sinfulness. And that's why we have to then recognize that these are not healthy behaviors, but we have to go deeper and ask ourselves, is there goodwill behind this? If there's evil will, ill will, then that's a deeper problem. But let's just say in this case, he's become passive because he fears losing her. I would compliment him. Thank you for having the virtue that you care enough about this relationship that you don't want to lose her, that you have a permanency in mind until death do you part. And there's a virtue there. The question is whether or not that approach is healthiest for the two of you. And so then how do you broach this? Most people are avoidant. They fear bringing up things because they don't like conflict. They'd rather just go along with things. There are dynamics that are present here that need to be unpacked. But to your point, I'm assuming that when you address that issue in your experience, you did so in humility. Women will respond to humility. They'll say, I'm bringing this up because I care about us. I can be wrong in this. I don't know if I'm right on this, but I got to broach this. I need you to help me. Here's how you come across to me at times. You're my mother, not my lover. And I know your heart's in the right place. You care about me. And I know I've got issues in my life. How do I address this issue without making you feel that I'm trying to put you down, when the truth is I want more from this relationship than my life itself? Now, if she's insecure, she's going to go off on him. But most women will only go off for a little while. And then whatever happens, she exits the room or whatever. Most women within a few minutes will come back and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Because women are hardwired to increase or should improve and deepen relationships if she's got any degree of goodwill. Now, if she married him on the rebound, or she feels like she got pulled into this relationship and she's still in love with a former boyfriend, that's a different issue. But if she's in this relationship and she's committed, she'll engage that. So he has to have the courage, like you did, to bring this up. But he can do it in humility. He can do it in self deprecation. But he can say, look, this is not working with me the way you talk to me here. I have one mother. I don't need another mother.
Yeah. No, that's good. I wonder if you did approach it in humility, because I did not approach it in humility, honestly. But it was clearly bad behavior. And I just was like, look, I won't tolerate this. And I went all in, basically, like I was willing to lose it. It was like, you're going to change this or we're not going to date anymore.
Yeah, well, that was a leverage, yes, and that was a leveraged conversation, and so that had a different component to it. It's either change or we're done, and that's a threat. In that situation, there's a little bit of a different component. But I do think the point you're making is God calls the husband to be the spiritual leader.
Yeah.
And what does it mean for him to be the spiritual leader? And what's interesting, you would think that in the Christian community, women would push back against that. They actually push back against passivity. Women don't like the passive man.
They don't.
They want their husband to be this umbrella of protection. She wants to see him under the umbrella of Christ. And if he's under the umbrella of Christ, trusting Christ, she'll come under that. She wants to come under that.
Sure.
I had a good friend who was a chaplain of the Yankees for years, and a street fighter, brawler, came to Christ, had a conversion experience not unlike your own. And he was talking about his wife. They were getting these conflicts. And I said, why don't you, next time she's coming at you and emasculating you, just say, we can either continue to fight, or we can go over there and sit on the couch and pray about this. And she said, well, she won't respond at that moment. I said, you don't have enough guts to do this, do you? You're chicken. He said, I can do that. I said, no, you won't do it. He said, I'll do it. 2 weeks later, he called and she said, she was coming after me, just yapping at me, just coming at. And I said, look, we can either keep fighting or we can go over there, sit down, and we can just pray about it. And I can ask God to help us. He said her spirit softened. She turned immediately, went over the couch, sat down, closed her eyes, and put her hand out. So he'd sit down and put his hand on top of her hand. He was stunned. He about wet his pants, he said. He was stunned. Why? Because God has hardwired women to come into that spiritual leadership. So if we're humble, we ask about praying about this, given that she's a Christ follower, you can speak into this. You can say, honey, I obviously am not leading well here because you're reacting to me in ways that are so negative that I must be triggering the crazy cycle here. I need to understand what I'm doing that's unloving, but you're reacting to me in these negative, disrespectful ways. Help me here. We need to talk about it because I don't believe this is what God wants. I need to pray about what I need to deal with. Is there anything that perhaps you can slightly adjust here to help me? Because it's not winning my heart. I say to Sarah sometimes, if I was really like Christ and I could walk on water, I wouldn't be reacting to you. I even wrote the book, Love and Respect. She chased me around the house once with my Love and Respect book saying, what would you say to a husband treating his wife the way you're treating me right now? So even though I wrote the book, we have these moments. And so part of the appeal is, I wish I was like Christ. I'm not, but we got to do this differently. And Sarah will engage that.
Yeah, that's good. So we talked about the difference between love and respect. Would you say is one more important than the other?
No, not biblically. But that's where we are as a culture of intimacy. Love trumps respect. But when you look at the scripture, we love God, but we also are called to honor and glorify. And those play out over the whole Old and New Testament as almost equal. And we're not only going to love God throughout eternity, we're going to glorify him. And he's not only going to love us throughout eternity, he's going to glorify us, which is respect on steroids. And so these are front and back of something that's very potent. And that's why Paul says it. We love Christ, but we reverence Christ. And he applies that not only to the Christ church relationship, but to husband and wives. So they are equal in value, particularly among men. And this is why we have gone the way of, as opposed to understanding what motivates men at the deepest core. And men have love, but you have to understand what motivates us, and it's issues of honor. I asked one well-known coach, I said, would you rather receive honors, be honored, or be honorable? And he said, be honorable.
So tell me the three things again.
I said, do you want to receive honors, be honored, or be honorable?
Huh. I mean, I guess if you're honorable, it comes with the other things that come along with it.
Possibly, but at the end of the day, we all know that the virtuous thing is to be honorable, because there are people who are honored and receive honors, but are not honorable. Right. And particularly in that industry, they can see the superficiality. There's one well-known basketball player that was all upset over the fact that on their private jet, they didn't have his favorite ice cream flavor. And he threw a fit. And you'd know who this person is. It's sad to see the level of immaturity among these individuals. And they get it. They see it, these prima donnas. But there are other individuals that are very honorable. They're going to do the right thing, regardless of the praise. And they're team players. And Coach Riley has addressed this, and he's just intuitively knowledgeable on this kind of stuff and what motivates people, what motivates men. But my point here is men, in fact, a 16-year-old boy was asked what he wanted on his tombstone. And he said, here lies an honorable man. And his mother jumped in, no, here lies a loving man. See, she took her pink view and wanted for it. No. But he already at 16 was guessing what we, as a culture, though, we say that's marginal. Women want to say in the culture of intimacy, that's marginal. If we just love each other, that's all that matters. That's not what the scripture is teaching. And Paul, who penned 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, never commands a wife to love her husband in the domestic portions of scripture. And 1 Corinthians 13 isn't about marriage, it's about spiritual gifts. 1 Corinthians 7, that I'm writing a book on, called The Win-Win Marriage, is about marriage. But neither Paul nor Peter ever command a wife to agape love their husbands. Neither one. It's about respect. And so those who are biblicists need to realize God is revealing something here from his heart to us that is the secret to opening up the spirit of a male. And once you understand this secret that's been hidden in plain sight, the marriage takes on a whole new energy.
Wow. Do you believe, you hear people say love is a choice? I think I understand what they mean when they say it. So here, I'm 48 years old and I've never been in love. I'm hoping that it happens soon. People will say love is a choice, like basically just go out and pick somebody. And I'm like, it starts with an emotion, right? And then it becomes a choice. Once you make the commitment, because at that point, if it was just a choice, you could just go out and choose to love anybody and then just get married. But do I have an accurate view of that? Because I'm waiting for this feeling, something that I've never felt before. I don't even know what it's like because I've never experienced it. But people say you'll just know. Now I understand how, that feeling could fade and then it becomes a choice because you made the commitment and you're going to just ride it out regardless of what happens. But is that pretty accurate? My viewpoint?
I think it's a combination. You see both in the Old Testament and even in the first century that there were assigned marriages. And so the Jews would assign marriage. You're married now, love and respect each other. And then in India, you see the assigned marriages. And those can work. Sometimes there's less divorce there because they understand that there's a maturity that's required of a relationship. Okay. And we need to be reminded of that there's more to it than just the hormones. Right. At the same time, to your point, so do I just marry someone who I have nothing in common with? There's no attraction. No. In the Song of Solomon as an illustration, you see the excitement of that romance. And so you have a romantic view and you have maybe that platonic view or the assigned marriage view. And it's a combination. My daughter married a little bit later. She was in her 30s. And she married a mature person. She was a mature person. And I say, the way you say, I'm trying to find the Mr. Right or Miss. If you find the perfect person out there, why would they marry you? Because you're not perfect. So we have this, we're outward focused, like I'm trying to find the perfect person. Well, why would they marry you? So it's more about me being the mature person, looking for a mature person. And part of that maturity means we're committed to something beyond the relationship, what we call a ministry focus. So my daughter was mature. She found a mature man. And they were committed to something beyond their relationship. But within that, there needs to be that romantic element. You can, to your point, but that I don't think God intended just to say, I want you to marry someone that you find very unattractive to prove to me that you're altruistic. Now, we all have to recognize that they could be in a car accident and they're brain dead and they're not dying. And so now what? If the relationship was based on symmetry, that they had these unchangeable features by birth that had nothing to do with character, and you're attracted to the fact that she's this perfect 10 and beautiful face, and now she's lost all of that. Now that becomes the test. Absolutely. And that's why people just walk out, because the relationship was based on superficial components. And isn't that wonderful? If that's the case, then are they going to walk out on you if the same thing happens? So people have to be, this idea that love at first sight is only the greatest of time savers, but it's completely superficial. How do you don't just hire somebody on first sight? This looks like a person who hires a plumber and they've never picked up a tool in their life. Well, I thought they could because they look like that. That's stupid. We don't make decisions other than in this area because the hormones do kick in. So we have to bring in the combination of wisdom and that subjective chemistry thing that God allows. There is clearly a chemical component here. That's why you said earlier about the testosterone. That's called a nucleus accumbens in the brain, that when men see the figure of a woman that's attractive, it fires. When women see a little cute baby, it fires. There's a huge difference there, but men need to understand we are visually oriented. That's a joy, but it's also a curse. But that visual orientation is going to be there, and it's something that God has gifted us with. It's a privilege, but it's also a curse. So that attraction is important, but we need to step back and say, what if she was disfigured? Do I want to be married to her? What was it that makes for the substance of this relationship? And that's where we have to then say, oh God, through Christ, what are the criteria you revealed in your scripture that will guide me in being wise in my selection? And that's why the Love and Respect book is really a systematic theology on what God has revealed to us about what makes for a happy, holy marriage.
So I love what, you were talking about becoming the person. And I love what Andy Stanley says. Are you the person you're looking for is looking for?
Yeah, exactly.
Why would they want to marry you?
That's exactly.
We all have the idea of what we want, but why would they want to marry someone like that? Want to marry you?
Yes, when we're up against that in the millennial culture now, because there's a race toward victimhood. There's a race toward victim, and so what each person has to understand is that at a personal, interpersonal relationship, in an intimate relationship, if you have the idea that you're the victim and that they're here to make you happy, and that anytime they offend you, therefore they must. You feel offended, therefore they're offensive. You feel hurt, therefore they're hurtful. And that's not the intent. And you give yourself a pass when they say they're offended or hurt. We just have to step back and say, I don't think there could be anything more immature, if not utterly foolish, than that. There are going to be honest differences of opinion. We're going to come at each other sideways. We're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect people. And that's why I'm big on goodwill. Goodwill doesn't mean good follow through. It means I'm not going to impugn the motives of this individual. I'm not going to say that they are offensive and hurtful simply because I was offended and hurtful. Could very well be that I'm just childish. I don't know how to deal. We have come to a point where we've removed all suffering from the culture. In fact, my son-in-law he works in France for a French company. He's fluent in French. And there's an individual that in the company showed up. They were undergoing treatment for cancer, but he's committed to his job. He came and he didn't look well. He was told not to come back because it triggered in people discomfort.
Oh my gosh.
See, so what we've done as a culture, we've removed all suffering. My mother's father had polio. They lost 4 sons before the age of 11. The suffering that people experienced, they didn't lose it. But we in this culture are trying to move all of that tension and difficulty. And I just appeal to people to allow for some of that in your relationship. Because if you don't, you're going to be a serial person relationship, and you're going to be 68 and look back on the 5 relationships you had and realize that you were a fool. That's not how you do relationships. Or put it this way, why would I tell them that they are offensive and hurtful, but I'm offended when they tell me that I'm offensive and hurtful? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And we have to realize if we are going to apply this, it has to also apply to me. But this is where I think people are so short-sighted, that it's all about me being the victim. You're not the victim. I'm not victimizing you. You're victimizing me.
Right.
And even though I did toward you what you did toward me, I didn't intend to that, but you did. And so this kind of thinking is flawed philosophy. And the people, as a father figure, I appeal to them as my sons and daughters, as my grandsons and granddaughters. Please don't believe the lie, because you're going to be unhappy. I say this not because I'm trying to put you down for the fact that you might in fact be offended or hurt. I get that. We are offended. Jesus was insulted. There are people who, there are evil out there. But the person we're married to, we have to be very cautious in labeling them as evil people when we know in our deepest of hearts that they're really not that. Why would we get in a relationship with them? I believe we have more discernment going into this than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. So that person's there. And the better part of wisdom would be to apply this Love and Respect book. And I can help you have a long-term, happy, healthy, holy marriage if that's what you want. It just works.
Yeah. If you don't get over that offense thing, you're gonna be lonely, because nobody's perfect, and people are gonna step on your toes. And good luck having any kind of relationship, friendship, romantic relationship. Recently had somebody, come into the nonprofit that I started to the group, and they had some criticisms, and they made it back to me, and nobody said hi to them. And when they came to do an event, come to find out, several people did say hi to them. They got invited to different things, golfing and whatever else. And I confronted the person. I'm like, why is it our responsibility to serve you? The thing is, the whole organization is based on sacrifice, but automatically the person was coming in with a chip on their shoulder. Like nobody said hi to me. I'm like, you got invited to somebody's house where there was tons of food and a paid DJ. Like, you got to take some responsibility yourself too. Did you say hi to anybody? That was my attitude with it. But you're right. This victim mentality now it's just like a disease.
Yes.
The stuff that I believe, but if you look at some of the greatest minds, like Napoleon Hill, I think about Think and Grow Rich. It says every adversity has a seed of an equal or greater benefit. So even if you do have something hard that you went through, if you look at it the right way, it actually can become a benefit for you. But now we want to make it seem like everybody's owed something because of whatever. And it's just, I don't know.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly.
Yeah.
And my whole book, this Win-Win Marriage, 1 Corinthians 7, we're already launching the Win-Win Marriage course online at loveandrespect.com, those who are interested. But I talk about 6 challenges. There are 6 challenges that come to every marriage. But it's through those challenges that we discover God's intended benefits, that the benefits come out of those challenges. And many people think, I can't get the benefits because of these challenges. If I can do away with these challenges, then we can experience these benefits. The secret is being able to see those challenges as actually healthy, that those challenges are not bad in and of themselves. And I talk about friction, stress. In our form of government, 3 bodies are there designed to create friction to slow down the process to make the best of decisions. That stress in a bridge, stress, tension, friction, these are not inherently bad necessarily, and actually are the key to discovering, to your point, like adversity can deepen us as people of character. It brings about wisdom. We make better decisions moving forward. And if we don't actually prize that, then we're going to, it's the analogy that was given years ago that I heard about. A young boy saw a moth trying to get out of the cocoon, right? That was
Oh
going to
yeah, I
be
heard
into
about that.
the butterfly. And so
Cut its way out.
exactly, he took a little razor blade type thing and cut the thing out, and it was deformed. And his dad said, son, God has designed it so that the moth has to work against it, and it creates strength in its structure, that it's vital so that when it gets out, it can fly. He's allowed that struggle to create that strength, and in order for it to be fully developed and to be set free. And when it gets free, that it can fly and be that beautiful butterfly that we see. And so many of us resent the cocoon for a period of time,
Right.
not seeing that this is God's gift to us.
Yeah, there's a local pastor here that I know, and he said something along the lines of no one will not force you to be more Christ-like than your spouse, but it was basically that. There's like, no one's going to make you more like Christ than the person you're married to.
Yes, Sarah certainly reveals how unchrist-like I am, whether she intends to do that or not. And it's just the way it is. And so I have this principle. My response is my responsibility. Sarah doesn't cause me to be the way I am. She reveals the way I am.
Yeah.
Therefore, if my response or reaction is unloving, it reveals an unresolved root problem within me. So human nature wants to fight against that. What I want to say is, Sarah, your response is your responsibility, and my response is your responsibility. And Sarah, if you just align with that, I'm going to be happy. So your response is your responsibility. My response is your responsibility. And that's where the culture's headed in many quarters. And we have to step back and see how stupid that is. At the same time, we need to realize that if I subscribe to the idea that my response is my responsibility, then you can't control me. You may be able to torture me physically. I'm not talking about those coercive techniques, but you can't get me to hate you. You can't get me to show you contempt. That's my choice. I am free within. And once I realized that my response is my responsibility, Sarah can't control me. And I was liberated. Suddenly I realized I'm free. I'd been under the idea that she's causing me to be the way I am. And I talk about a speck of sand in the human eye first causes irritation, and then if not cared for, infection, and if still not cared for, could lead to loss of vision. That same little speck of sand in an oyster causes irritation, then concretion, and produces a pearl. And so the question is this: did the sand cause the results in the human eye? Did the sand cause the results in the oyster? No. The sand is an irritant that reveals the inner properties of the human eye, and it reveals the inner properties of the oyster. And so one of the points I make at our conferences, we married an image. So they are revealing who we are.
He wanted you to make a pearl.
That's right. We either lose vision or we become very precious.
Okay, two more questions. One, and this will be short. I'm guessing you don't believe that there's just one person for everybody.
I believe once you're married, you're just one person. Yeah.
Right. Well.
Yes. Yeah. No, I believe that there is that freedom to. That's why I think one has to be prudent about that. What are the criteria for that? And that's why I'm criteria. The love and respect. COUPLE, CHAR. What does it mean to be loving? What does it mean respectful? Is this person? Can they be loving and respectful? And if you align with that, you're going to be a happy camper. There's wisdom in this. We don't. It's in relationships. It seems that's the only place we don't apply wisdom at times. And we don't apply that anywhere else. There needs to be some skill and knowledge in this. And therefore, you have that freedom. Now, you have to be married in the Lord. Paul is saying in 1 Corinthians 7, the widow said she's free to marry whom she wills in the Lord. So there you see this freedom. She could marry a Jewish convert, a Gentile convert, as long as both knew Jesus Christ and were walking with Christ. So the first criteria, does this person love Christ? And do they understand that? But then if you have six people want to marry me, or I want to marry, which one? And that's where some wisdom is necessary. And that's a joy. It's also a challenge. But no, I don't believe that. But once married, then we're joined together, and that's permanent. But there's a reason for that as well that God has.
If there's six, I'm going to convert to Mormonism.
Yeah, polygamy is an option in some quarters, but trust me, you're not going to want that.
No, I know that. My pastor pointed that out to me. He said, look, every time that a person did that in the Old Testament, they were outside of the will of God. And it always came back on.
It's huge backfire.
It always came back on. But just for the record, you don't believe in soulmate then? A soulmate?
I don't see that in Scripture. I do see oneness. I see oneness, that God intends to become one. And that's a very potent, powerful thing that I'm talking about in win-win. But that's the result of a skill and a knowledge, not just happen chance. this very superficial, and I think we all know it. We think that there's this soulmate out there, but I have not seen anybody who came together as soulmates that didn't end up having problems. And then they called into question whether they made a mistake. And it's interesting how some people believe God was in this, but then 6 months later, apparently God changed his. We just need to be honest about this. We need to be honest about this.
Yeah.
And with the romantic notion that Hollywood has created is not valid in real life. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. Two people meet and they're deeply attracted to each other. But even those two individuals, I've seen people who are Barbie and Ken, and everything just clicks, but they're eventually, life starts coming at them sideways, or they have a 5-year-old that gets cancer and dies, and they're not going to take a second honeymoon to Hawaii. So that's why I talk about the 6 challenges that come to all of us. And you can be Barbie and Ken, and those 6 challenges are going to come because it's part of God's design. And if you don't have the wisdom to deal with those challenges, you're going to then second guess the prudence of this relationship.
Yeah, so this is a question that my assistant wanted me to ask you, Christina, and she's amazing. She said in today's church, there's a much higher ratio of women to men than men to women. What dating practices do you recommend to Christian women who have been dateless for a long period of time?
Again, I think becoming familiar with the love and respect message, I think today's, looking at that, first of all, in a negative, which is not a positive thing to do, but there is this, there can be an appearance that women have of showing contempt and disgust and disdain. And just as harsh, angry men are not appealing to women who have that sour look, the dark eye, are contemptuous. So word choice is very important. So they may be pushing some of these men away. At the same time, I've had women, because I was in a college town, who come in, and particularly as they get that biological clock, as my Joy, my daughter, would say, my eggs are about to dry up. And there was this fear that I'm not going to have a family, I'm not going to have children. But also these women made decisions about not marrying someone who did not love Christ, did not have those character qualities. And now they were lonely and suffering. And I said, let's remember that you're here because of your godly choices, your godly, wise choices. And this delay does not mean this is God's denial. And let's not doubt in the dark what you chose to do in the light. And this is a faith venture, and God knows your heart. And if you make godly, wise choices, He's not going to forsake you. I believe that. There's no absolute guarantee. I'm not going to say that. But I think my daughter Joy didn't marry until her 30s, fearing her eggs would dry up. And then comes in this guy who's a couple years older than her. And when your daughter dates someone who's not been married and he's that old, he's either the holiest of guys or he's a former felon, right?
So, what does that say about me?
Yeah, well,
48, never been married.
Yeah, well, but the point is, you've also had the experiences here, and there's an incentive for you to do it a different way because you were disillusioned with those former ways. You realize that was not of God, and so there's a story that you have and you're telling it, and I appreciate that. But God honored our daughter, and that's part of her testimony. She was head of our conferences for 10 years. She's put out 500 videos called Love and Respect Now, addressing all these issues of singleness, love and respect now. And then see the story come full circle on this. And so she has a message of hope for such gals. And again, women are relationally oriented. And the church is, I think, friendlier toward females. We sing, the groups come. It's not always male friendly. The strong males are not necessarily feeling comfortable in those situations. And the church has to always be aware of that. It's not that men are indifferent to the church. I had a guy that had 7 businesses. He said, there's no place for me here in the church. I'm not going to sit on the board and make this, decisions that go on forever. I'm not going to teach a kindergarten class. I'm not going to say, I don't sing. There's just no place for me. And we have to recognize that those men are out there, but they don't. So we have to create new environments. This is what you're doing with your efforts on your nonprofit, bringing these men together, hopefully, where they feel like they're needed. And that's a huge issue.
Yeah, that's a great point. No, I think you're right. I think the church, it definitely caters more to femininity with singing and even just submission to God and all that. So you're right. It is definitely something that a man would have to get over. But thank you so much for coming on. I know your time is limited. Everybody, you can go learn more about Dr. Eggerichs at loveandrespect.com. Read his book, read Love and Respect. Check out his newest project, The Win-Win Marriage. Where else can people find you? Is there anywhere where else you want them? You're on Instagram, aren't you, Doc?
Yeah, we have all of the social media out there that we'd love for them to follow us on, but that can be found at loveandrespect.com, and that's all spelled out, LOVEANDRESPECT.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and dropping knowledge on us. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. God bless you, Rob.